It's hard to overstate the magnitude of what just happened in Westminster. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor who once lectured the nation on fiscal discipline, who told working-class families to do their bit, who framed herself as a guardian of fairness, has been stripped of her personal fortune by Britain's highest court. Not by political rivals, not by tabloids, but by the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. In a stunning and unprecedented ruling, Reeves was found guilty of shielding her own wealth from the very inheritance tax regime she enforced upon millions of British families. She didn't just bend the rules. According to court records, she built an entire legal firewall around her estate: offshore trusts, shell companies, hidden beneficiaries. It wasn't accidental. It was strategic. And now, it's unraveling. For years, Reeves had positioned herself as the face of a fairer economy. She insisted that her tax reforms would only target the rich. But for families across the UK, those with modest homes and modest pensions, it quickly became clear that Reeves' definition of rich included them. She froze the inheritance threshold at £325,000, refused to adjust for inflation, and then expanded the net to include pensions. The result? Thousands of families blindsided by taxes on what they thought they'd already earned. Homes lost, legacies destroyed, small businesses dismantled. And while the public struggled to absorb the blow, while families grieved their dead and watched estates vanish under tax demands, Reeves was quietly building her own escape route. Court documents show she transferred major assets into offshore accounts based in secrecy jurisdictions, places where transparency laws are weak and oversight is minimal. Properties were shifted into shell companies. Pension funds were tucked behind legal smokescreens. Everything she told the public to avoid, she used for herself. With precision, with intent, and with knowledge that she was breaking the very laws she helped design. IT was a whistleblower inside HMRC who triggered the alarm. An anonymous tip about undeclared trusts led to a full-blown investigation. The Supreme Court reviewed documents, financial statements, and internal memos. What they found wasn't a misstep. It was a betrayal. Judges described Reeves' conduct as a calculated abuse of public office. And with that, they issued a full asset seizure, something rarely seen in modern British politics. This wasn't just about numbers. It's about trust. About the illusion of fairness in a system that punishes the many to protect the few. Reeves had claimed to be fighting for ordinary people. But in reality, she was writing one tax code for the public and living under another entirely. The fallout has been immediate and fierce. Protesters have flooded the streets outside Parliament. Online petitions calling for her resignation gathered over 1 million signatures in a single day. Across social media, across town halls, across every spectrum of British society, the message is clear. She lied. And we paid. Even the Labour Party, which once championed her as the architect of economic integrity, has been thrown into disarray. Officials are scrambling to contain what they now privately call the Reeves catastrophe. Behind closed doors, strategy sessions aren't about saving her. They're about how much longer she can remain in office without dragging the entire party under with her. The most damning revelations are still surfacing. Newly unsealed documents reveal that Reeves transferred her late father's estate into a series of Jersey-based shell corporations just months before announcing her inheritance tax reforms. A Luxembourg pension fund, shielded by EU cross-border provisions, was quietly structured in her name through third-party beneficiaries. She denied it all on camera, called it fiction, laughed it off as a smear campaign. But it was real. It was planned. And now it's exposed. These aren't tools available to everyday people. These are weapons of the financial elite. The same instruments used by oligarchs, hedge fund managers, and multinational giants. And Rachel Reeves, Labour's champion of economic justice, was wielding them behind the scenes. The implications are massive. Regulatory bodies have launched a second wave of inquiries. The National Crime Agency is now involved. Investigators are combing through every financial link, every shell company, every unnamed beneficiary. If they find more breaches, and sources suggest they will, criminal charges could follow. Not administrative fines. Not parliamentary sanctions. Prison. And yet, Reeves remains silent. And no apology. No resignation. Not even a televised address to explain her side of the story. And that silence is what's fueling the fire. For decades, the British public has watched political leaders pass laws they never intended to live under. But this feels different. Because this wasn't just hypocrisy. This was a minister who designed a system to punish grieving families while carving out a golden parachute for herself. Economists are now warning that the scandal could erode compliance with the entire tax system. Financial advisors say clients are already calling in, desperate for protection. Why should I pay if Rachel Reeves didn't? That's the question now echoing across the nation. The media, once cautiously supportive of her reforms, has turned. Front pages scream of betrayal. Editorials demand resignations. And political commentators across the board agree. This is a disaster. Not just for Reeves, but for the Labour Party, for public confidence in governance, and for the very idea that justice applies equally. Even inside Labour, the fractures are widening. MPs are breaking ranks. Some have called privately for her immediate removal. Others worry that if she stays, they won't. Constituency leaders report furious calls. Local party offices are overwhelmed. It's not just about one minister anymore. It's about a party accused of enabling her, and the numbers reflect the damage. Polls show Labour's lead narrowing. Once safe districts now show dangerous swings. Voters who once stood behind the party are backing away, not in apathy, but in protest. They feel used,
betrayed,
lied to. In Parliament, the mood is explosive. Every time Reeves enters, she's met with jeers, with shouted accusations. "You robbed us," one MP cried. "Where's our trust fund, Rachel?" another demanded. The speaker struggles to maintain order. But there is no order left. Behind closed doors, senior officials are discussing contingency plans. Not just for Reeves, but for others who may be implicated. There are whispers of additional trusts tied to her relatives. Possible offshore properties in Spain. Leaked emails suggesting that key loopholes were deliberately preserved in the tax bill so Reeves could exploit them later. The Treasury is in crisis. An internal audit has been launched to determine whether Reeves' policies were shaped around her personal financial structure. If that's true, it's not just unethical. It's corruption. And it will bring down more than one career. Already, financial watchdogs are looking into whether her Luxembourg-based pension fund gained from insider knowledge of future reforms. If proven, it shifts the case from tax avoidance to criminal financial fraud. The Supreme Court's ruling has set a precedent. But it's also set a fire. A fire that's spreading across Westminster, across party lines, across every institution that once said, "Trust us." And at the center of that fire is a woman who stood at the front of Parliament, promised fairness, and delivered exploitation. The British public is not waiting for permission to be angry. They're already there. What they want now is accountability. Real accountability. Not PR spin. Not soft suspensions. They want action. Because what Reeves did wasn't a scandal. It was a betrayal of the public's most basic belief, that the rules apply to everyone. If that belief collapses, so does democracy. So where do we go from here? That question is now echoing through every institution, through every newsroom, through every home. Does Rachel Reeves stay? Or does Britain finally send a message that no one, not even the Chancellor, is above the law because this time the damage runs too deep? The trust is too broken, and the reckoning is already underway.